Hello everyone and welcome to this video which is in our Human Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler. We are taking a look at the final game from the Oxford versus Cambridge Varsity match. That's Jan Petr against Emil Powierski, and it's a great game because this was the game that won the best game prize. Let's have a look at it. It was an absolute stunner. A really amazing fighting spirit displayed by both players. So Jan Petr made a little surprise again, so we saw a lot of opening surprises and cleverness in the opening. He'd mainly a 1e4 player, but came up with a little surprise. So the Jabava London system against Emil. Emil reacted very sensibly, very solidly. Knight f3, a6, slightly unusual. This plan that Emil did, but definitely not illogical at all. So white hasn't played c2 to c4, so black's taken the opportunity to expand on the queen side. Knight e5, bishop b7, and now, I mean, there are many moves for white, many different plans, but Jan had clearly decided that he was going to go the aggressive route this game, and so he played the move queen f3. Now, Emil's next move surprised me slightly. It's actually, a good move still. That's not the point, but he played knight bd7. And just the point is that now c5 is a little bit more tricky because white will have knight takes f7 and bishop takes d6. The queen's no longer defending the bishop, so it felt like c5 was the natural move there for black. I imagine that Jan would have probably done something like d takes c5, bishop c5 and castles, something like that. Could have been quite interesting. I mean, this was an engine game where the engines thought this was about even, but it's an unbalanced game. Looks like it could well be opposite side castling, stuff happening. I think that that probably Jan would have been just quite happy with any sort of position he gets from the Jabava London system, just a fighting game. The point was that Emil, I noted in the preview, was very well prepared. Played the same thing pretty much all his life. So wouldn't be easy to really get a plus as white against him. So this was really, I think, an attempt just to get him out of the book, and then let's just see what happens. So knight bd7, played castle queenside, really going for aggressive. The engines were more thinking about castling kingside. Actually, Leela came up with an interesting plan here, just playing a3, and after queen e7 from Stockfish, then b4, just trying to clamp down on this break. Quite an interesting idea, I have to say. But castles was Jan. Queen e7 now from Emil. Very sensible move, just protecting this bishop on d6 so that c5 is possible. And now g4. The engines did not like that at all. They weren't happy at all with these moves. But yeah, again, I think human play, practical game, absolutely the move that the crowd wanted to see. So b4 played, now white has to decide what he wants to do. Knight e2 was Jan's choice, and again, I think that's completely the most natural human move. I think the engines were starting to feel a bit uncomfortable as white here, and they were actually looking to bail out with takes and bishop takes d6. But in actual fact, this does feel quite nice for black. I mean, I think a move like c takes d6, knight e2 and a5, and black's going to get some counterplay going here. So I think knight e2 is pretty natural, and it's one of those things that you often do find with when you're analysing positions with engines. That you've got a concept, and then you keep on going for it, and the engines are sort of saying, "Oh, I'm not sure about this," and their evaluation of your position, starts going down. But there's always a critical moment, when your opponent needs to find some really good moves, in order to keep an advantage. And when you're playing this, sort of sharply, aggressively, unbalancing, if the opponent doesn't find that idea, then often he can just end up much worse. It's not. It's one of those points, and of course the engine always finds the great idea, but human opponents often don't. And but you often have this sort of sense that you play a line, you've got your concept, and then your evaluation is dipping down, and then all of a sudden your opponent doesn't find that one crucial move, and then it goes up again. You know, it's yeah, one of those things about preparing openings in the modern age. Here, black played knight e4. Yeah, the engines thought that wasn't the most accurate, but Emil certainly had the best idea. They thought that taking straight away and going knight e4 was the best, which is actually going to lead into something similar to the game. They were really very positive about black's position here, just anticipating a very quick a5 to a4 to a3. After knight e4, well, the engines think that that white could bail out again with knight takes d7, but yeah, Jan was never going to do that. Knight g3 was what he played, just fighting against this knight on e4. And here Emil played a very nice idea. He took on e5 with the bishop. Bishop takes c5, takes, and then knight c5, stepping out of the way, and threatening d4. And well, you know, I mean, these pawns are coming somehow. So you know, it's not just you know, white's obviously setting things up aggressively with the g pawn, this e pawn, a knight that can come to attack, but black's certainly doing the business as well here. So interesting move now from Jan, queen f4. And yeah, here yeah, Emil took a really interesting decision, very provocative decision. Played the move g5. The engines thought actually that black was already a little bit better here, and that castles simply was a good move. And the idea will be that this knight either retreats and you play c5 and then c4, or you're going to take and play c5. You know, it's the engines thought that that black was already slightly better here. g5 really, though, you know, forces white to take a very important decision here. I mean, the key point is that queen f6 is kind of required, because if you go queen d4, I've got this move knight b3. Takes and then c5, and the queen is trapped, and well, bishop b5 check's the only way to get out, but I don't think you're particularly happy about opening up that c file against your king. So white played queen f6, takes, d4 from black, e4, maybe a little bit on the risky side, but not bad yet, and now knight d7 from black. And yeah, you know, I mean, in the commentary room, we were veering from side to side, you know, about, you know, what's the best line. I suggested that h4 was maybe best, but I was sort of in saying, yeah, but, you know, white's not really going to have an advantage here. You know, knight takes f6, we play f3, probably you'll take off. I might win back the h pawn, but that's not going to give an advantage, you know. But in actual fact, it's more than that, because that was kind of, you know, white's best chance for not getting into a much worse position. And yeah, we were having some problems deciding. We really veered from you know, from side to side, saying, oh, is white better? No, I think black's better. Oh, is white maybe, you know, better? In actual fact, after knight h5, castle queenside, the engines really thought that that black was much better in this position. And the problem is that, you know, this pawn on f6 might be a strength, but it's tying down this knight to h5, and well, black has actually got quite a few ways of upping the attack on that pawn. So, well, in the game we'll see the king coming round here, and there's also simple stuff, just like playing the rook g8 to g6 as well. So actually, in this position, white's in a reasonable amount of trouble. The engines were really trying to break open the position with f4, you know, and try and somehow get some protection of the f6 pawn in that way. Jan played h6 rook h3, lining up on the h file. Well, yeah, this should not have been a particularly good idea. Knight e5 is pretty decent. F3, c5, b3, and now the engines were sort of looking for well, a plan very similar to what Emil did in the game, but maybe just well, just a little bit more accurate, and just tending actually to avoid the exchange of rooks on the h file. So so king d7, that was this. I was just having a look at an engine game. Rook dg1, king d6, king d2, rook a8. Oops, rook a8. king e2, a5, and after knight g3, just rook c8, just skipping off the h file. And the idea simply is that white can win this pawn, but black's position is so solid that it's not really achieving anything. And we're just going to come in with a b3, with rook a2, with c4, and with the power of two rooks attacking the white position. White is in quite a bit of difficulty here. So yeah, this was a game that Leela lost to Stockfish from this position, and also Stockfish lost to Leela. So both sides, both engines were really suffering as white here. But I think the key idea was really to try and keep two rooks, two pairs of rooks on the board, and just give white the h file. It's so far away, and just advance on the queen side there. So what happened in the game was that rook h1, knight g6 happened, takes, rook h3, king d6, and now rook h7 was important. I spent a while looking at rook h5 because I pointed this out, that black would actually win a piece, but sort of looking at it with John Spielman, we decided that this would be a bit lunatic for black because white gets rook c7 and then rook takes f7. But actually, as so often in these cases, the engine says, lunatic, no worries, this is just winning for black. And it seems that f pawn, the a pawn that we're winning, that's totally unimportant. Black is just completely winning in this position, and there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Rook h5 would actually have been a really bad move, but rook h7 from Jan was better there, and black played rook d7 to defend the pawn. And we sort of felt around this point in the commentary room that the position had sort of got a bit imbalanced somehow, stymied. That white was protecting the f6 pawn, protecting the f4 pawn. G5 was attacked if the knight moves away, and we're attacking f7 and defending this rook. And we were kind of expecting a draw from now on. That's what we want. That's what we were expecting. But actually, what happened was that both players just kept on playing, and I think Jan developed this idea that he was going to move the a pawn up. And maybe even move it to a5 and try and tie this one down. And if the maybe at some stage he might be able to get his rook behind and attack. I think there was an awful lot of positive play going on from the white side, and I think that Emil was also thinking about some advances here. The interesting thing is that a4 is actually quite a big mistake. Because the engine thought that if white just brings the king round to the king side and just waits like this, then there's no counterplay whatsoever. There's nothing really that black can do with the position. But when you play a4, that's actually weakening the whole queenside structure, and black suddenly gets a lot of chances. So b takes a3, takes bishop c6. Actually, the engines think that black's more or less winning here. Why? Because we go knight g3, king e5, bishop b5, king a2, and now some amazing stuff happens, which again, I was looking at this and not thoroughly understanding it. A4 is the idea. A4, that's an amazing idea. What's the idea? With a king a4, we go king back to d6. And we go knight e5, takes d3, and actually this white king is getting in some serious trouble. So that's one idea, and if you go b takes a4, then takes and d3, king b2, king d4, and we're coming in with knight e5, takes c4, rook b7. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the black pieces have got unbelievably active, and that's all happening really because white's weakened the queenside structure, and somehow black's able to get this d pawn running, and the black pieces are sort of perfectly placed to follow up behind it. And these white pieces on the side, they're not tying down black's pieces anymore because we're able to open up extra channels on the queen side. So it looks like this a4 was not a good idea. Emil didn't spot that, and to be honest, if he'd spotted it, I would have been absolutely in awe and also amazed, because it never remotely occurred to me that was the best way to proceed. So Emil went a5. king c1, bishop c6, king d2, and this is really going in the wrong direction now. Actually, the best move for white is simply to play the bishop to e2 and just sort of wait with the king to b2. As we'll see, you know, these pawns are actually quite weak. When black makes a breakthrough and starts attacking them, you'd really want to have your king on the queen side defending them, not over heading towards the king side. But if that hadn't happened, then you know it would have wouldn't have had all of this excitement. So I think that Jan was still, you know, positive, thinking about winning here, but this is a really big mistake. King e2, and here Jan had a number of opportunities. He played c4. Rather, Emil had a number of opportunities. Actually, bishop takes a4 is what the engines were looking at, which again leads to some amazing stuff. So let me just show you the main variation. Rook takes g5, bishop takes b3 and a4, and black's just wanting to clear everything and is going to play c4 here. And you know, the big point about it is that the pieces really just are so active, and these white pieces are just completely out of play. So after bishop b1, a takes b3, f4, d3 check, king f2, knight d7, e5, king d5. Amazing stuff. We're just coming c4 to c3 to c2. F5 played kind of to attack, but also to try and get the knight back into play. But knight takes c5, c4, just d2, c3 check, c2, takes, king d1, rook c4, knight d3, takes, e takes f7, rook c8, rook g8, and b2. You know, just amazing play, really. And queen a2 picks up the pawn on f7, and black's completely safe. Amazing play. Not exactly what you'd expect to replicate in a human game, I have to say, but well, you get a sense of what needs to happen, and well, you're going to see what Emil did in the game that was also, you know, very strong, and well, you'll get a sense of what could have happened. So, bishop takes c4 played. Maybe b takes c4 was slightly better. But bishop takes c4 looks very natural. Takes, because after bishop a4 you go king d3, and you're protecting the c4, protecting the c2 pawn, and you're ready for rook takes g5. However, here already black had the amazing possibility of bishop takes c2, and after king takes c2 then a4, and well, actually, it's not obvious to me, I have to say, that the black pawns are already too strong. And after e5, you're not taking that. You're going king to c5, rook g8, king c4, and you're just going to be shepherding those pawns home. And yeah, I mean, you know, the point, of course, is that, you know, you see that extra knight and it makes a big impression on you, but it's so far away that black's pawns are going to get really far down before black manages. Knight e4, a3, rook a8, a2. We're just a step away from b2 to b1, king e3, and now a move you've just got to love, rook c5 here from black, just looking to take the pawn, and if white takes the rook, then we're not at all worried. So f4 takes, king b4, still just waiting, knight d2, rook a5, and it's all too much really for white. Knight takes d2, knight takes d2, a1 queen. As you can see, I mean, the specific lines you don't need to worry about, but the general basically frenetic dash, just sacrifice everything and let those pawns run whilst the white pieces are out of play. You know, that's the basic idea. But to be honest, Emil was this was move 40 without increments for Emil, so I'm not surprised he played the also very strong move e5 here. So Jan played rook takes g5, which is the only natural move, and the only move you'd expect from a human player. And here's somebody in the audience, I'm sorry I've forgotten your name, but pointed out that bishop takes c2 was winning, just like in the previous line. King d2, rook takes c4, and well, it doesn't matter which side you go, one of these pawns is going to queen. So that would have been amazing as well, but Emil played the move b3, which I'd also pointed out, and I thought that this would probably be winning for black, because after takes we take, we've got bishop takes c4 check coming in, and this a pawn is going to be a runner. White plays f4 just to break things open, Bishop takes c4, check, king d2, and yeah, now things just start going absolutely amazing. I pointed out in the commentary the move rook c5, which I thought was the best move, but I also said that after rook g8, it wasn't really clear to me. This was probably winning, but it wasn't like clear winning to me. I wasn't 100% sure about it. What you need in these sort of positions is the engine, because the engine just sort of pierces through, all just the total mess that you're looking at, and just shows, just like clear ways not to queen a pawn, but just to pick up material. And after a4, rook a8, actually this move e takes f4 is very strong, and we're just coming in with king e5 takes e4. So we don't worry anymore about the a pawn. We're just going to pick up pawns on the king side, and this f pawn's really fast as well. So that would have been, clear, but somehow, I was looking at it with a chess 24 board in front of me, and I was feeling a bit confused. So I can only imagine what Emil was feeling like. So he played a4, and here in the commentary room, we thought two things. We thought that f takes e5 was the clearest line to a draw, but we also thought that rook takes e5 was drawing, and that it was possibly, a much more challenging way for black. So yeah, we were kind of right, but we were also kind of wrong, because f takes e5, king c6, and then e6 was what we were looking at. There are other ways to draw, but this seemed like the way to go. Bishop takes, and then rook a5. Bishop b3, knight f4, and we sort of thought that this would be all right for white. We got g5 to g6, e5 to e6 coming in, and our knight's also going to cause some irritation with knight d5. It's not 100%, it's not as easy or as clear as we thought, but it was a good drawing line. Jan played rook takes e5, which feels pretty good and pretty threatening, and the rook's coming over to a5. We've got this lovely mass of pawns now. The only thing that we weren't sure about just in the commentary room was obviously it's a tempo slower. It gives black an extra tempo, and well, we couldn't see a way that to make it all work, but we were definitely a little worried about it, that giving that extra tempo might be worrying. And well, it turns out that that's right, but obviously you need to have worked a way out to have any bragging rights about that. It's a3 was the best. Actually, I wonder about it. Why didn't we spot this? Because it doesn't look that complicated. But the aim is rook a5, a2. And after knight g3, you just aim over to c6, knight e2 and king b6, and you're just threatening rook a7 afterwards. Looking at it, I just think, wow, I'm surprised I didn't spot that. It just looks really easy, but that's it. It's very simply, you just a2, and then the king just comes to b6, and well, this is the best line that Leela found, but yeah, this is obviously going to be winning for black here. So a3 was really clear, but don't ask me why. For us, it was we didn't spot this in the commentary room, so it's obviously got something confusing about it, and yeah, no shame at all for Emil that he didn't spot it. He played the move that we were looking at mostly in our commentary room, which was rook a7. But now, amazingly, black's in a lot of trouble. Or black's really got to watch out. I mean, we were looking at the rather tame knight g3, which and after bishop e6, we were looking at playing knight e2 and taking back here, and somehow covering the pawn. We thought that would make a draw, but Jan just went all in with knight g7. I mean, he's just going for a win here, and well, I mean, we got little ideas like knight e8, which can do all sorts of unpleasant forks, and of course we've got the same threat, knight e5 takes d4, and the point of bringing the knight to g7 is that bishop e6, well, will allow knight takes c6, so that's extra stuff for black to calculate. Here black needed to play the move a3 here. Knight f5, we go king c6, knight d4 and king d6 if I'm not mistaken. And this was leading to a draw somehow. If you go, we thought that the best line for white, the engines thought the best line for white, the simplest, was to play like this, and then well, this ends up being a draw. Sort of similar to the game, really, where a passed a pawn on the side just deals with white's kingside pawn majority there. But Emil played d3. which looks quite reasonable. Just save that extra d pawn, don't give your passed pawn away, and just let this guy roll. But actually, it turns out to be should be a decisive mistake, because after knight f5 check, you start getting real problems about where to put that king. If you go back to d7, we've got rook e7 check. So after king c6, we've got knight e7, and actually there's not that many good places. This is really looking really weird, just bunching up the king like that. And well, I mean, it gives white the opportunity. I think we thought that rook c5 was going to be winning for white here. You just take the c pawn, take the bishop, go back, give your rook up for the a pawn, and then just move these pawns forwards. And the black king is so far away here. I mean, it's awful. So you don't want to go that far, but you can't go to d6 or to b6 because of knight c8 check. So you end up having to go to d7, which it doesn't feel that the black king's really contributing anything now. And now Jan played another good move, rook c5. I mean, really, there was this sequence of about 3, 4, 5 moves where Jan really just found excellent ideas all the way through. And somehow, out of nowhere, Emil has just lost. Just gone from being in control, having played a beautiful late middle game there, heading into the end game, and having played completely natural moves, get rook behind the passed pawn, all of that, he suddenly lost. So he played bishop b3 here, and Jan played the move knight c6, which is a very strong move. We were looking at all sorts of things in the commentary, and knight d5 came up. That was my idea, which I thought was drawing. As you can see as well, we were quite confused in the commentary room about whether we should be aiming for a draw with white or whether we should be aiming for a win. We were starting to have a slight inkling that white might actually be a bit better in this position. The idea that we were just totally winning was not there yet. But John pointed out an absolutely lovely line, which was after a3, I was looking at knight c3 and thought, oh well, we'll give up the knight for the pawn and we'll be fine. But John pointed out knight b6 check. The king can't go to the back rank because of rook c8 checkmate, and after king d6 we just go rook c3, and after a2 there's the amazing, see if you can spot it, e5 check, king c6, rook c6 checkmate. Gorgeous idea. John's so good. He really is so good. But knight d5 is not the best line there. Knight c6 is definitely the best move. And yeah, king d6 was whacked out by Emil here, and it sort of went so quickly that we didn't have time to consider. Well, that's my excuse for not having spotted that in this position this lovely intermezzo rook a5 would be completely winning. I mean, if you move the rook away, I just go knight d4. The rook's behind the passed pawn. There's no problems anymore, and we're just going to start moving our guys forwards. It's just going to be an absolute massacre. And if you go rook a5, rook takes a5 here, then takes bishop e6, f5, bishop a2. We just take the pawn, and then we head back, and this is just completely winning. This was Leela's line, which was quite nice. G takes f7, after king f7, king e4, and we're just winning. So the other point actually is that rook c1, which is what Jan played, which I will say is the only move we looked at in the commentary, is not the best. Rook c3 is the best move. The point is that well, if ever we move our knight back, then we get our king into play straight away, and this a pawn can't run because we're attacking the bishop. It's just a way better way of playing. And after rook a8, knight d4 was the best line according to Stockfish and Leela, but it's just not going to work for black. We're going to start moving our pawns forward. We can take this pawn, and we've always got our knight within range to stop the a pawn from queening. So that was incredible. But yeah, I mean, players were starting to get rather short of time. There were no increments here. I think it was just to the death, really. So incredibly complicated lines to calculate. After rook c7, we're back into a draw here now. But I couldn't have told you that either. So e5 check was played, king d7, and now Jan played the move that I was expecting. John pointed out this other incredible idea, which was f5, rook takes c6, and e6 check. with the idea that after f takes c6, we go rook c6, and if king c6, then f7. Haha. However, well, the engines just think that e takes f5 is just a draw in actual fact. So rook a6, f takes g4, king d3, g3, and well, black will pick up this pawn with his king, and it's just going to be a draw. But still, very nice idea from John there. He was really going for it. e6 check was my idea. But yeah, just wasn't quite right. Just wasn't quite working. I also wondered a little bit about knight to b8 check, whether this was going to be any winning chances for white. But the engine says no, so I think I'll believe it. I have to say I would feel a little bit nervous as black in a human game, with a rapid time control trying to survive this one. But e6 check was played. Bishop e6, knight e5 check, king d6 takes, and we just had a bit of a horrible moment in the commentary because so king takes d3 we thought was probably going to be drawn. You push the pawn and the king comes in, and I don't think you can't force the queening through, so the king's always going to manage somehow to get there. But Jan was thinking, and we were thinking, oh no, he's not, is he? And oh my goodness, he did. He played the move f5, and this is actually a massive blunder because black here has the opportunity to go bishop takes f5. Now, we recovered as grandmasters do, and we said, oh, wait a minute, surely we can draw here. We can play g takes f5, a3. Okay, the pawns can't be stopped, but can we just play knight takes f7, a2, and knight g5? Because after a1 queen, we go f7, and there's actually no way to stop this pawn from queening. So yeah, f8 queen followed by knight e6 is happening. So if you go something like queen f6, I go f8 queen, and after queen takes f8, knight e6 check. So we thought, phew, we've saved that for black, but actually black's got this much better idea, which is just king d7. Yeah, there's no need to queen the pawn immediately. You just wait, king e7, and that's it. Goodbye. White is completely lost in this position. Sometimes some of these positions might end up as draws, but not this one. The queen gets to g6, and the king is just but white's position is just doomed basically. So yeah, that was an amazing moment. So that could have been absolute amazing turnaround there, but Emil thought for a little while actually and played bishop d5. I mean, I think both players were exhausted by now. Knight takes d3. Yeah, we felt that Jan was just taking a few risks here, because we were even finding ways for Jan to lose as white, but that's wrong. I mean, that's completely wrong. It's not correct at all. And Jan played it very well. King c3, bishop b3, king b4. It helps, of course, that this is the wrong coloured bishop for this rook's pawn. So white just only has to give away the knight for this pawn, and you'll be fine. And well, that didn't prove to be too difficult. We got knight e4 check, knight g5. This was pointed out by Natasha Regan and a few other people who she was analysing with. Knight takes f7, and a draw is agreed because well, black wins both these pawns, but it's the wrong coloured bishop for this rook's pawn. The white king goes back here, whoops, and it's a draw. So there we are. What an epic game. I think in general maybe a little bit more in black's favour than in white's, but yeah, it could have turned around completely. I think I thought Emil, when I looked at his games, was a very strong player, and I think he displayed that here. And I also thought that looking at Jan's previous games in the Varsity match, had a very good temperament for match play. I thought he was going to be a tough cookie. So I thought, really was hoping, in the preview, that this one was going to be a big matchup, but this exceeded all expectations. It was an absolute thrilling game to look at in the commentary, and yeah, really want to thank both players for providing us with an absolutely wonderful afternoon, and very richly deserved best game prize shared between both players, which caused a slight problem with the best game prize, which was a single painting, but well, I'm sure that will all get worked out. So there we are. That concludes our look at the Oxford versus Cambridge Varsity match. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you will join me in expressing admiration for the quality of play that all these young players who are not professional chess players. They're academics, and they dust out the chessboard this once in a year and fight like crazy and give everyone an awful lot of pleasure. So lovely match there. Looking forward to seeing what happens next year. That's it. If you like the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and boost the number of subscribers. That would be really, really nice. Otherwise, take a look at my new book and Chessable course, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement. If you enjoyed the sort of analysis I'm doing, then there's loads and loads of that in that book. And otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you for the next videos. Thanks for watching.